great day coming, a great day coming, a great day coming by and by. When the saints and the sinners shall be parted bright and bright, are you ready for that day to come? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for the judgment day? Are you ready? Are you ready for the judgment day? There's a sad day coming, a sad day coming, a sad day coming by and by. When the sinners shall be far and arena, are you ready for that day to come? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for the judgment day? Are you ready? Are you ready for the judgment day?
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all here this morning. We are continuing our study and discovering the pearl of great price, talking about the parables of Jesus. And today we're talking about a subject that's near and dear to each one of us. We're going to talk about our money this morning. What we have or what we don't have. We're still going to be talking about it. I know that that's a subject that's mentioned often in the Bible, talking about different types of money and ones that had it and how they were to use it and so on. And so we'll be talking about some of those. This was, I guess, for me anyway, it's a little more difficult parable to get through. I've read 2 or 3 different books. I've read commentaries. I read through the Bible, the subjects dealing with it, and it's a little bit difficult. Some of the sayings in this parable. It is a parable, but it could have very easily been a true story. And unlike many of the other parables, Jesus doesn't begin it by saying, the kingdom is like. He just begins talking about this story, telling this story. It immediately follows the parable of the prodigal son, whether it has a relationship to that, I'm not really sure, but like I say, it's dealing with finances, and it's also we need to understand before we get into it that usually the master or one of the father in prodigal son represents either God or Christ, but not necessarily so in this parable. So let's get right into it a little bit and begin. The parable is found in Luke chapter 16, beginning in verse 1, going through verse 15. And like I say, it's a little bit difficult for me. I am lost my place already. I have notes in different places here, so bear with me as I may be doing some rambling this morning, going back and forth. Had a marker here, and I've lost it now. Here we go. There is a passage in Malachi chapter 3 and verse 8. It says, "Will a man rob God? Do we do that? Can we? How do we do that?" You know, it's quite very possible that all of us are robbing God or have robbed God, do rob God. So it's possible that we can rob God. And we'll explain that a little bit further as we get into this. But Jesus begins the parable of the unjust steward. Now, again, a little explanation as we get into this. In those days, many of the richer people, Abraham had a man that took care of some of his affairs, would have a steward or a manager or a property manager or a business manager type of person that would care for their affairs, take care of their riches, and so on. Now, if you remember talking about tax collectors, how they were despised by the Jews. Why? Not necessarily because they were collecting taxes for the Romans, but why were the the tax collectors so unliked? Okay, so that they were paid by the Roman government to collect the taxes, so they received a salary or sum of money, but many would add additional on, like, you know, you owe the Roman governor $5, but I say you owe me $10, so I'm going to pocket the additional money. You know, we all buy gasoline, and we drive down, and we stop and fill up, and we pay $2.50 for a gallon of gas. We drive a quarter of a mile down the road, and there's the same brand of gas station, same type of gas station. They're charging $2.20, 30-cent dip. Why? Because the government allows them to, within reason, to supposedly anyway, to charge an additional on top of what they pay for it, so that they can make money, which is understandable that they're in business to make money, but some make a little more than others. Just as we all have possessions. Some of us have more than others, but it's not the possessions that we have that counts, but how we use the possessions that we have. And we need to understand right up front, or it's in the lesson here somewhere, I'll probably mention it again, that what we have, all that we have, is not mine. I don't own the things that I have. God owns them. God has given them to me to use while I'm here. And it's how I use those things that may determine where I spend eternity. You know, we mentioned last week or week before last that many of our see how to phrase this, that our salvation is conditional upon different things that we do. Salvation is conditional upon how we love one another. Do we love one another? Our salvation is conditional upon our forgiveness of others. If we do not forgive, God will not forgive us. And our salvation also may be conditional upon how we use our money or our possessions that we have. So Jesus begins this parable, and he's, like I say, he doesn't start off as the kingdom of heaven is like, but he just says that there was he said this to his disciples. But we find in verse 14 that his disciples were not the only ones that were present. Pharisees were also there. And so I'm sure that Jesus was speaking loudly enough that not just his little group of disciples right around him could hear, but he wanted the Pharisees to hear this also. And it spoke about their greed, their pride. So the story has much to do about that. But he begins. Rich man hears that his steward was wasting money. Well, let's read the actual account. There was a certain rich man who had a steward, and an accusation was brought to him that this man was wasting his goods. It's up there where I can see it. So he called him and said to him, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be steward." So he found that this man, and the accusations apparently were true, because he said, you give an account of what you have done, but I'll let you know right up front, you're released of your duties. So apparently the accusations were true, substantial enough that the rich man believed them. And the steward told him to give an account of his stewardship, and then he would be relieved. He wanted him to justify the accounts or make amends or whatever he had done. Now, let's go on. It's talking about the shrewd steward. And the steward reasons within himself then concerning his dilemma. He says, "What can I do? Well, I'm getting fired. What am I going to do now? Where am I going to go? I can't dig. I can't do manual labor." And it doesn't say anything about him having any health issues or handicap capabilities or anything of that nature. It appears that he was just lazy. Didn't want to do any heavy labor. One of the commentaries says, "I can't dig, and I'm ashamed to beg." One of the commentaries, and I'm not sure where they got this, but they added in there that although he may have been ashamed to beg, he wasn't ashamed to steal. So he was overcharging and stealing in that manner. So I suppose that's what he was talking about in the commentary. I can't dig and I can't steal. What am I going to do? And then the light bulb come on. I know what I'll do. So he calls in all of the ones that he had sold things to, the master's debtors, and he has them to change their bills to reflect smaller debts, which perhaps cheated the master even more. Now, that's maybe a little debatable there too, as we get on down here a little bit. may cheat his master even more, but it favors him to his master's debtors by lowering their debts. He, you know, Emily, you owe me $50, so I'm going to say you only owe me 25. Settle up. And to Randy say, well, you owe me 10 gallons of oil, so I'll let you just give me 7 and we'll be okay. So it's not necessarily because the master was not really upset with what he had done, so it's probable that he got his money, what was due him, but the steward just, I guess, conceded his profits, did away with his profits in order to settle the debts so that the master would be satisfied. He didn't threaten to throw him into prison or anything like that as the unmerciful servant in that parable as he did there. So perhaps the master was satisfied with what he had done. But here comes the part that is often misunderstood and so hard to understand. So the master commended the unjust steward because he had dealt shrewdly. Okay? Again, this is a parable where the master is probably not referring to God, not referring to Jesus, but just a rich man, the master. And he's commending him for being shrewd, not for what he did, not for not collecting the debts in the first place as he should have, but being shrewd and trying to prepare for his future. The master, who's rich owner, was not Jesus. The master never said what the steward did was right, but he only praised him for being shrewd. We are to, well, I think the next phrase will throw a little more light onto it maybe, or a little confuse us even more. Okay. So the master, beginning in verse 8, so the master commended the unjust steward because he had dealt shrewdly. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in their generation than the sons of light. What does he mean by that? The sons of this world are more shrewd in their generation than the sons of light. The business people in this world are out to make money, right? Many, I'm not saying that everyone is like this, but many care not how they do that or how they go about it. Whether it's by legal means, whether it's by just price gouging, however they do it, they are shrewd. They know how to make money. They know how to do it. We as Christians are a little more fair with our people that we deal with, and we try to do what is right. We try to do something for a fair price, or give a service, or sell something for a fair price. So it's how we use the money. And he says that, just people of the world probably understand this a little bit better than Christians do, or are better at doing it than Christians are, as far as making the money. There is a passage, if I can find it real quick, I think I got it marked here. It's in, I think, 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy 6:10. Does anyone know what that says? Passage that Paul wrote. 1 Timothy 6:10. Dealing about money. For the love of money is the root of all evil. Now, many times we've heard it said that money is the root of all evil. Nothing wrong with having money. We all like to have a little bit of it, don't we? Nothing wrong with having the money. But the love of money is the root of all evil. Also, remember the story of the rich young ruler? Rich young ruler came and he asked Jesus, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" And after Jesus told him to obey the commandments, "Well, I've done those things." He said, "Well, you go sell all you have. Sell your possessions, give it to the poor, and then come and follow me." What did the rich young ruler do? Went away sorrowful. Now, Jesus didn't run after him, did he? He didn't say, "What? Wait a minute, just 10%. Just give away 10%. Didn't do that. Because he knew that the love of money, the love of his riches, the love of his possessions had become his God. And we can't allow our money, our possessions, to become our God. Jesus said, you cannot serve two masters. Either serve God or mammon. Mammon meaning the riches or possessions that we have. Can't serve two. You will have to decide one or the other. And so the rich young ruler went away sorrowful because he just couldn't bear to let go of his God. Yes. Right. They know how to do this. They have studied it, and even a Christian that's in business, that goes to business school, they've studied how to do things, but probably not overcharging or not crooked, I guess you might say, as some of the shrewd people in the world. They know that, if I do this, this, and this, I can make more money than what I'm making now. And so, the saying that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, the rich know how to, no matter how much they got, they want more. Most of them. Okay. People will do anything for money. Many people will. So it's not having it, but it's how we get it and what we do with it when we do get it. Jesus' comment concerning the wisdom is, this generation was wiser than the children of light, and his observation was that people of the world are generally very resourceful with things of the world, but such is not the case with the people of God. So we are, we have Christian attributes, I guess. We want to please God in our dealings with others. We want to be fair and honest. Yeah. Well, I think that's something like that is what I said last week about the temptations, have more temptations after we become Christian than we did before, because before we didn't care. We just did it. Wasn't really a temptation. I wanted to do it, I did it. After I become a Christian, I know then I start thinking, well, I shouldn't do that. So it's like that with making money. Maybe beforehand we do anything to make money, but now that we're Christians, we understand. Ron, you first. Okay, so that's a great example of how to use your money, your riches. Jim?
I'm just wondering, the laws that we have today can protect us from a lot of that, but it doesn't protect our individual dealings with each other.
Yeah, there's laws that govern how businesses work somewhat, and that many find themselves ways to be exempt of that law. But our individual dealings with one another is what we're going to be accountable for. Randy?
Yeah, I was just saying, maybe enough of my dad at a gas station, and he had a tendency to try to help everybody out, and especially for church people, he would try to give them, the best deal that he could. But then you could see eventually some people would take it for granted. So it's like, maybe, you get a good deal on that. But you see that sometimes people like that will try to take advantage of other people.
Oh, yeah. There's always people out there trying to take advantage of you. There's, all the scams that are going on nowadays where they try to take advantage, especially the elderly people and so on. I marked something in here I wanted to comment on. Well, one thing also just came to mind was the story that Jesus told about the sitting and watching the temple, the treasury, people that come by, and those that have a lot of money. Some of them came and they had the big bags of money, and they kind of hold it out, I guess. See what I'm putting in, I'm putting a lot in. Like Ron said, gentlemen gave a lot. Well, what the story or the Pharisees or whoever it was that was putting in the bags of money probably wasn't giving out of what they had, but giving of their abundance. They had so much that didn't really bother them. People that have millions of dollars, doesn't bother them to give away $1,000. But those of us who have an income of $30,000, and we can't just afford to give away $1,000 here, everybody that comes along. Hillary? Yeah, that's why I say, that it's not the money that's the root of all evil, but it's the love of it. It's how we use what we have. let's go on here and see what we have. The only friends who can receive us into heaven are the Father and the Son. These are then the friends that we must secure during our life. During life, our means must be so used as to please God and to lay up eternal treasure. If we use it as a trust of the Lord, we will secure such a friend. Instead of hoarding, we must make heavenly friends. Okay? Lay up treasures in heaven, we've been told. Okay, Jesus talking to those that are faithful, he gives us two, what did I do? Went back too far. What did I do? Okay. He starts by saying two general rules. He says that he who is faithful in what is least will also be faithful in much. So if we're faithful in a little bit, then we're probably going to be faithful in a lot of things, like the parable of the talents. The one that had much, more was given, because they used what they had wisely. He says that who is faithful with what is least is also he who is unjust in what is least is unjust also in much. If we're going to cheat a little bit, then it's probably not going to hurt us to cheat a whole lot, will it? It won't bother our conscience. We cheat a little, bother us if we cheat a whole lot. If we haven't been faithful in our handling of material riches, how can we expect to be entrusted with true riches or spiritual riches? He then reminds us that what riches we have are not our own. Luke 16:12 said, if we aren't faithful with that which belongs to another, then who will give us what is ours? At present, we are simply stewards. Nothing we have is really ours but God's. If you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? Okay, since we cannot serve two masters, we can't serve both God and mammon. And this may imply that we must control mammon and not vice versa. Okay. Say there was something else that I had marked in this book that I thought was really good. Okay, two things within the parable. And I didn't read the whole thing. That's the reason I kind of forgot what I was doing here. Okay, again in verse 8. So the master commended the unjust steward because he had dealt shrewdly, for the sons of this world are more shrewd in their generation than the ones of light. Okay, he didn't commend him on what he had done in order to settle the accounts, but just commended him on being shrewd. But then he goes on in verse 9 and says, I say to you, make friends for yourselves by unrighteous mammon, that when you fail, they may receive you into an everlasting home. Okay, what did the servant do to gain friends? Okay, he cut their cost. He reduced their debts, which again, as I said in the beginning, it may be that what he got in the end was enough to pay the master for his goods, but it just reduced his profits, the servant's profits. But he made friends. He made friends. He said, again, he says, I know what I'll do. And so he He said, I can't dig, I can't work heavy labor, but too ashamed to beg, but I can do this. I'll make friends so that when I do lose my job, if these men, these debtors that I have given a deal to, may remember me and give me employment after I'm fired. So he was looking out for his future. And Jesus says that we should do this. We should make friends so that when our riches fail, that we will have an everlasting home. Now, we need to gain wealth, or not wealth, but gain friends here on earth. And we do that by not being tight-fisted, by not being misers, but by sharing what we have. We do that by helping others. We do that by our contributions, our gifts, our alms, or helping the different nursing homes, children's homes. We gain friends by them, and not only are we gaining friends that might help us here on earth, but we are doing, by sharing what we have, we are gaining a friendship with Jesus and God. We are being faithful to them and doing what, laying up treasures in heaven. So, our pearl of wisdom through this lesson, and like I say, I know that I probably haven't done this justice today, going here and there and rambling about it, but we do have hopefully we've learned something from it. And our pearl of wisdom is how you handle the money that passes through your control on this earth is an accurate barometer of whether you are saved or not. Do you serve God Almighty or the almighty dollar? So it's what we give, and I opened up with, can we rob God? Do we rob God? Now, I know that people don't like to talk about their money. They don't like to talk about giving, our free will offerings, but it's important to God. Now, again, the Pharisees or whoever that put the bags of money in was doing it out of their abundance. But the poor widow gave the 2 mites, gave of all that she had, gave of things of her necessity. So our offering, our giving is supposed to be a sacrifice. Now, if we aren't sacrificing anything when we give, then maybe we're not giving enough. And it's always kind of been a touchy subject with me. I try to be a fair and honest treasurer for the congregation here. I have been accused a few times of wrongdoings. I know one minister that we had here, at his leaving, we had made an arrangement of how we would pay him when he was out trying out for other jobs. And he told me one time, you handle the money like it's your own. I said, well, thank you. That's a compliment because I take care of my money. And I've been accused recently of hiding things that we do in the treasury. And as your treasurer, I have told you over and over and over again, any questions you have about the treasury, any question you have about what we spend it for, who we give it to, I'll open the book and show you. So try to do the best I can, and it's been an easy job to do last several years because of the generosity of the congregation here. There have been times in the past where I have to look at the due date on the bill and make sure I pay the one that's due first, make sure I pay that one, and maybe wait till next week to pay the next one. Fortunately, we're not in that situation anymore. We're doing very well, and it's a commendation to you. That's all of our time for today. Next week, we will be talking about talents, I believe. Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan next week. Okay, thank you very much.